Okay, so in case you haven't heard, it looks like they are going to make a Spaceballs 2. If you're not familiar with the original Spaceballs, it's a film that came out almost 40 years ago, done by the great Mel Brooks, who, by the way, has not directed a movie since the 90s with Dracula, Dead, and Loving It. Now, I'm sure Mel Brooks is involved with a lot of projects. I mean, he had the hit Broadway show of The Producers. It seems like Mel Brooks is always, he's always visibly seen. Like, he doesn't seem to mind being in front of the camera to talk about his works. I've often seen him on other things where he's just playing himself. And I get the feeling like he is one of those guys who I actually believe he has a history that goes all the way back to World War II. Like, he is that old. So he must be easily you could say he's past his prime. And I would have to say that a lot of his works, there seems to be this whole consensus by a lot of people that think like Mel Brooks is absolutely the legend of comedy. He is, but I've never really thought Mel Brooks was really that funny. I've seen several of his works, which include Spaceballs, which I'll get to. Young Frankenstein is a very funny film, I'll give him that. And this guy helped create Get Smart. That is one of the funniest shows that was ever on television. I will say that from the get-go. It is one of the funniest things. It sort of felt like the way we did television back then and movies was very different than how we do them now. And I sort of wondered if Mel Brooks was able to sort of get into that era. I'm told he actually just did a follow-up to one of his hits called History of the World, which if you haven't seen that film, that's pretty funny too. But it's funny in a way like, you watch it and you go like, this was pretty funny back then, wasn't it? And some of the things are actually still funny now, but there's a big complaint about the movie he did called Blazing Saddles, a Western that he did which features a black sheriff helping a town. Most people say that movie could have never been made today, and part of that is because of I think it's displays of, I wouldn't say the film is racist, but it does actually bring racists to the front. And racism, I think, is actually the target of that film. And I think people are misinterpreting what Blazing Saddles is about by doing that. But I will have to say that, hey, I didn't really think Blazing Saddles was all that funny, especially at the end where it gets very meta, where I think it has the characters leaving the studio itself and going into another movie, which something I thought like, okay, I don't even know what level this should be at, because I get the feeling like even the Muppets probably wouldn't do something like that. Okay, maybe they probably have. Muppets break the fourth wall all the time. I'm going to talk about Spaceballs now, because this is another film that does that. It breaks the fourth wall all the time. Spaceballs literally does not take itself seriously at all. There's a comfort in watching comedies like that. They are very much, I wouldn't say they're very much comfort food, but I would have to say, with knowing that there's nothing at stake, it feels like you can just kick back and have a fun, entertaining ride. And the way Spaceballs is definitely set up here, it satirizes Star Wars, but it doesn't satirize the plot exactly. And the characters are similar to, but not exactly like the characters of Star Wars. It's not like the Blue Harvest parody of Star Wars on Family Guy. Now, here's what I've been told. I don't know if this is true. I'm told that actually Mel Brooks talked to George Lucas before he was going to make this film and asked him his advice. And I'm told George Lucas actually loved the idea of the Star Wars parody, and Lucas doesn't seem to mind when he sees parodies and stuff like that. In fact, I'm told the Family Guy parody that I mentioned before, they worked with Lucasfilm on that to make it as good as it was, and it was very good. But with Spaceballs, I actually believe that George Lucas probably helped out with the special effects, because some of the special effects in Spaceballs look very good. And so good that I'm going like, they're almost too good for a film like this, which doesn't take itself seriously. In other words, the special effects of Spaceballs could look terrible and it would probably match. Kind of like the bad special effects in the movie Life of Brian or something like that. they could have done it that way. That they spent more to do that, and they spent a lot on this thing. And I actually believe Spaceballs actually flopped when it was in the theaters. It's considered now a comedy classic, probably because there were a lot of kids that probably grew up with it. It was probably on their VHS. I mean, for crying out loud. I'll bet you anything that's probably how, because I know some people that think like, oh, Spaceballs is one of the funniest films of all time. And back when I watched it, I was a teenager that loved Star Wars, and I hated this film. I actually did not like this film at all. That being said, there are some jokes in Spaceballs that are absolute comedy gold. I will say that. The opening shot of Spaceballs starts with that text scroll, but not, after it does the text scroll and it has a funny joke there, it does this very long, drawn-out shot of a spaceship passing by. And it takes forever for the spaceship to pass by. And the whole thing is, the whole joke is being banked on this. And I have to admit, jokes that are long are a huge risk. Because if the audience doesn't find them funny, it's going to feel incredibly drawn out if you take them through a long, unfunny joke. But in this case, that opening shot with the spaceship that just keeps going and going and going and going, it's just absolutely hysterical, because you think it's going to end at this point and it's like, nope, it doesn't. And then it's just, and the music is trying to keep up with it. It is a brilliantly done shot. If the entire film was as good as that shot, Spaceballs would be a masterpiece. But as it is, it's not. There are some things in it that I think, and I think one of the reasons why the film doesn't work is because the plot is juvenile. It feels like it's taken from a Saturday morning cartoon. There's a scene in which the characters are being shot at by essentially stormtroopers with lasers, and then one of the characters takes some pipes off the wall, and then the lasers go into one end of the pipes, which are curved, and out the other, and it takes out the gunman. And I'm kind of going like, okay, I'm pretty sure I saw that on, like, say, the Flintstones or Super Friends or something. I just kept going like, okay, it just felt like something that you wouldn't see in anything, even as something as hard to believe as, say, Spaceballs. So yeah, the fact that they're bringing this back isn't nothing new. I actually heard that when Disney/Star Wars released like the Star Wars The Force Awakens, I actually heard that Mel Brooks was talking about making a sequel to Spaceballs then. I think he realized like, hey, I have something here, and I've got this intellectual property. Something you might know about this, but Spaceballs actually kind of has a sequel. Well, technically it has an animated series. And this animated series was definitely designed for adults. It has sort of this Family Guy, very crude humor sort of feel to it. The animation doesn't look good. And if you think that maybe just Mel Brooks just signed off on that, you would be wrong. Mel Brooks is all over the dang thing. He provides the voices, and I'm kind of going like, why do you even put his name on this thing? It's so bad. And it's essentially been buried, this series. I mean, no one talks about it because it's horrific to watch. I've actually watched a few episodes of it, and I kind of went like, oh, this is just awful. And then, of course, one of the weaknesses of Spaceballs is the characters aren't really very good. The main character, Lone Star, is just a Han Solo ripoff, but not very a good one. I mean, he's played by Bill Pullman, for crying out loud, dude. Does his best job, but I think it's Daphne Zeminga, I think is her name, plays Princess Vespa, who is this spoiled brat princess, and is just such a grating character, and it's just so terrible to watch that I just kind of went like, okay, this character is nothing like Princess Leia, and is nothing that we love from Princess Leia. In fact, everything Princess Leia wasn't. I really felt like they didn't really understand this character when they created this thing. It is great to see John Candy in this, and yes, I miss him. I mean, he passed away in like the 90s and stuff like that, so he won't be back. Maybe they'll get another actor to play him. I don't know. I am told Rick Moranis plans to make a return to Hollywood. If you don't know Rick Moranis, was such a big guy in the 80s of comedy. And eventually, I think his wife had cancer, so he's been taking care of his kids and sort of left acting. You see him do some voice roles, but that's about it. The fact that he wants to return as Dark Helmet is a great thing, because he's one of the things that made the first Spaceballs movie really good. Anyway, good luck with this, Mel Brooks. And if you direct this, It might be your last film, and I'm sure you know that already.